The Chronos Journal. Deep in the corners of her grandfather Silas's attic, Tika found a heavy, leather-bound notebook. It didn't look like a normal diary. Its pages hummed with a soft, rhythmic vibration, like the ticking of 1,000 invisible clocks. Silas had left a note on the cover, "For the one who values the small things." As Tika ran her fingers over the weathered leather, the latch clicked open, revealing a drawing of a dusty Egyptian marketplace that seemed to shimmer and breathe. Without warning, the attic floor dissolved into golden sand. Tika gasped as she fell, landing right in the middle of a bustling ancient city. The air smelled of incense and river water. The notebook was still in her hand, but it had flipped to a new page. The ink on the page began to crawl and shift, forming a sentence. "The scribe's record is incomplete. History will forget the harvest." Tika looked up and saw a young man looking frantically through a pile of papyrus scrolls. The scribe, Hapu, was tossing scrolls over his shoulder in a panic. He was supposed to record the grain tax for the pharaoh, but his specialized reed pen, the only one blessed by the temple, was nowhere to be found. "If the numbers are not written, the people will not be fed." Hapu wailed, his hands trembling as he searched his belt for the third time. Tika noticed something caught in the ornate carvings of a nearby stone pillar. Tika reached into the crevice of the stone pillar and pulled out the slim, pointed reed pen. She tapped Hapu on the shoulder and held it out to him. His eyes widened with relief as he took the pen, immediately dipping it into a pot of black ink. As he began to write with a steady hand, Tika felt a sharp tug at her waist. The notebook was pulling her back into the swirling golden light of the pages. The sand vanished, replaced by a thick gray fog and the smell of coal smoke. Tika found herself on a cobblestone street in Victorian London. Carriages rattled past, and a boy stood on the corner, shouting about the morning news. However, everyone was walking past him, shaking their heads. The notebook pulsed in Tika's hand. The new entry read, "The news is right, but the time is wrong. A discovery will be buried." Tika walked up to the boy, whose name was Pip. He looked miserable. "Nobody's buying, miss," Pip sighed, pointing to his sign. "They say I'm pulling a prank." Tika looked at his chalkboard sign and realized the date was written as 1988 instead of 1888. A small mistake, but enough to make everyone think his news was a joke. Tika grabbed a rag and a piece of chalk from Pip's bag and carefully rubbed out the extra loop on the 9. The moment the date was fixed, a gentleman stopped and bought a paper, then another, and another. Pip grinned and tipped his cap to Tika, but before she could say a word, the cobblestones turned into a grassy field. The wind whipped her hair as she stood on a sandy hill. Nearby, a man was tinkering with a strange wooden contraption that looked like a giant box kite with an engine. The inventor, Cillian, was trying to tighten a crucial bolt on the propeller, but the engine was vibrating so hard he couldn't get a grip. "If this isn't secure, we'll never leave the ground," he shouted over the roar. Tika realized the notebook had sent her here to be the extra pair of hands. She stepped forward and gripped the vibrating metal frame with all her might, steadying the machine so Cillian could turn the wrench. With a final, triumphant turn, the bolt locked into place. The engine's roar smoothed out into a steady hum. Cillian cheered, but as he turned to thank Tika, she was already fading. The world began to spin like a kaleidoscope of colors: Egyptian gold, London gray, and the blue of the open sky. Tika felt the notebook dragging her through a tunnel of light, mending the frayed edges of history as she went. Tika blinked and found herself back on the attic floor. The dust motes danced in the afternoon sun, just as they had before. She looked down at the notebook. All the pages she had visited were now filled with beautiful, permanent illustrations of her adventures. On the very last page, a new sentence appeared in Silas's handwriting. "The timeline is safe, and the notebook has its new guardian. Tika smiled, tucked the pen behind her ear, and waited for the next tick.